Ujwala Tulshigiri is an engineering manager in charge of the real-time analytics platform at Uber. She's also a key member of the Apache Pinot community. She came on the show to talk about technology consolidation. That's the thing a lot of organizations are doing in the last year or two, given the economic climate, and she's really developed a lot of wisdom around the topic. I thought we were going to talk about migrating workloads from one piece of data infrastructure to another, but we ended up talking about open source, technology selection, a lot of things like that. It was such a good conversation. We were just trying to cover 4 technologies, but we're going to split it into 2 parts. So listen in on part 1 right now. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Real-Time Analytics Podcast. I'm your host, Tim Berglund, and I'm joined today by Ujwala Tulshigiri. Ujwala is an engineering manager at Uber in charge of the real-time analytics platform. Seems like that might be of interest to us on the show. Ujwala, welcome.
Yeah, good afternoon. Thanks, Tim, for having me on the Real-Time Analytics Podcast. I'm really excited to be here and share my experience in this space with the audience. So just for a quick introduction, for the people who don't know me, my name is Ujwala. I'm engineering manager at Uber, as Tim mentioned. My team is responsible for building the real-time analytics platform, which is powered by Apache Pinot. It enables variety of use cases for the Uber businesses, including the user-facing analytics, real-time dashboards, real-time log search, and we currently support multiple orgs teams from delivery, riders, earners, and communications at Uber. But our goal is to build the world-class real-time analytics platform at Uber that can cater to all the requirements for all the teams, so that we do not have to look for the alternatives within the short time.
Awesome. Yeah, and so none of those teams are ever tempted to go and stand up their own thing. You provide them with a platform.
Right. Yeah. And then a brief journey about me. I joined Uber data team in 2018 as a software engineer. Before that, I mainly worked in enterprise storage companies like IBM, EMC, Cisco, and a couple of other startups. Of course, there are differences in how teams operate in enterprise companies versus service company like Uber. So I learned a lot from that. Especially, I was introduced to a lot more technologies like Kafka, Flink, Hadoop, Spark at Uber, and then when I transitioned into the management role, I was able to pick it up and set up a long-term vision for the team to build in this direction.
Awesome. Yeah, and getting to solve problems like that at the scale of Uber is, I don't know, sounds fun.
Yeah, I consider myself really fortunate to be at Uber at the right time, I will say, because the things were just kicking off in the real-time analytics space in 2018, 2019. So I got to start multiple things from scratch.
Yeah. Oh, wow. If you ask me, things are still just taking off in the real-time analytics space. But you're right, in terms of the existence of things like Pinot, I mean, this is very early days.
Right. So I will say maybe the things with Pinot at Uber. So that was still a early journey.
Yeah. And honestly, I mean, just the idea of doing things in real time, it might be for Uber, that might be, natural and sort of how it has to be, how the business has to operate. But that's an idea that's still kind of working its way through the world of, normal non-tech companies. That's still new. So today I want to talk to you about technology consolidation. That's kind of a polite term for getting rid of stuff, right? But that's kind of the mode a lot of the world is in right now with, particularly in the startup space, the way the startup funding environment has been since late 2021, early 2022, and overall economic trends. It's been a time when people are spending less money. They're trying to grow with less investment, and normal companies out there in the world, non-startups, also spending less, trying to cut back, and consolidation is one thing people do during seasons like this, and that's a way of taking. You had 5 systems and you only really need 3, and so you reduce it to 3.
Right.
So let's talk about, I'd be interested in what you're consolidating and kind of what your thought process is, what the old system did, what the new system's going to do. Let's just talk through some cases.
Yeah, actually, over the last 5 years at Uber, I mainly worked on the technology consolidation efforts on the Pinot. But to give you a brief history about that, right? Because I think the main motivation for any technology consolidation start with the motto of do more with less, because you want to achieve a lot of things, but you also want to spend a lesser amount of resources, whether it's the engineering resources or your the technology expertise that you want to have, right? As I said, like if there are like 5 different technologies, then you have to fund those 5 teams. That means that even though there could be some overlap between these, you are still investing into every single team, and then like you are it just in terms of resources in general, you kind of like accumulate that over the period, right? And I think when the company is small, actually the scope is small or the scale is small, they give rise to the different domains. Like for example, I have this specific use case I want to, and I think this can be better suited or better solved with the Elasticsearch. Let me try that. Then some other team comes up with the similar requirements, but with some slight deviation. But this is something Elasticsearch doesn't work for me, so let me try something else, and I will build a new technology. And over the period, like we accumulate so many redundancies in the tech stack that we have to think through the investment point of view, like whether we are making the right investment in growing these teams. So to give you an example, actually, there was a technology called ArisDB. ArisDB is again the real-time OLAP platform, which was developed at Uber, and then it was open sourced later on. The main thing is like it was powered by GPUs. So you can imagine of course you will get the out of the world the performance, like lower latencies. You will be able to perform better because like it's a C++ engine, the query execution engine, and because of that, like they vested into this ArisDB, and like we started supporting a couple of use cases. But as I always say, actually, it doesn't matter how expert or the technically challenging the technology is, if it is not usable or like it is not something easy to adopt, you will see the challenges with the sustainability. Like you won't be able to keep up the engagement by the customers. But also at the same time, we are not saying that you have to compromise with the feature. So we are looking at the technology which is kind of extensible, pluggable. We should be able to bridge the feature gap that is available in the other technologies, right? So with that thought processing, actually, like we looked at the ArisDB, and then it was expensive because GPUs by nature they are expensive, like almost like 4 to 5x compared to the commodity hardware that Pinot uses.
Especially in the last few years with crypto and now AI and
yes,
there are people willing to spend a lot of money on GPUs. So
exactly.
Yeah.
So the major motivation for the ArisDB deprecation was the cost efficiency, because we wanted to save the money on the GPUs. And also the fundamental question is like, do we really need that low latency for the analytics use case?
Like what is your actual latency requirement, and is it worth it? Again, it's an investment decision, exactly. Right? That marginal improvement in latency for some use cases might actually be necessary. And, if you have to spend $1 million to get those 5 milliseconds, you'll spend it.
Exactly.
And the other thing, I'm just thinking about ArisDB here, is in an OLAP database, I mean, what GPUs are good at is vector instructions, right? Big list of numbers here, big list of numbers here, fetch them, multiply them and add them or whatever. Do that thing that you do, that vector instruction. And sometimes you need that, like if you're calculating a bunch of gradient descent in a neuron, in an AI model, that's exactly what you need. You absolutely need to optimize for that. Is that really the thing that we're optimizing for in OLAP? I mean, it seems like I/O is the thing we're optimizing for, like actually getting the number and running the reducing function, or over the metrics that you scan out of a table. Not to dump on AriesDB. I'm just saying it. Maybe it's an optimization for, as you said, it's not really an optimization you need.
Exactly. So you're right on spot actually in that space. I think like we also kind of added like new features to the REST-DB. Like for example, it used to support full upsert, it used to support the geospatial filtering, and then like also the joins between the fact and dim tables, right? Like so those
Really?
were the actually key features that it supported. Like when Pinot was missing that.
Yeah, those are late
Exactly
in Pinot
So-
and not easy.
Yeah, it's actually those are like fundamentally challenging features, and it's your technology architecture should support it, right? Like so to enable those features or to add these features. And with Pinot, actually, we were able to simplify our stack by closing that gap. Like there are all these features are contributed. Like some of them are contributed by the Uber engineers, like upsert, full and partial upsert. We also contributed to the collocated joins, and then we also added this fact to dim table lookup UDFs. And then major thing was actually we were able to seamlessly migrate the use cases on the REST-DB to the Pinot, because actually like the users were happy to see the simplification in terms of query language. They do not have to write these complex JSON-based queries. They moved to the SQL-based queries, right? Like so, it was easy transition for them, and it's also easy for us to convince them, why we are moving to the next one.
Just tell them you get SQL.
Exactly.
Okay, we're ready for this. And I don't want to. I know there's a few technologies to cover, and I don't want to spend forever talking about areas, but just some things that are occurring to me here for like lessons learned about technology selection that apply, whether it's a database or like whatever it is, in the realm of open source. And that's in infrastructure. That's at Uber. That's kind of what y'all do. Use open source things. You want something that's got a decent community around it, because you just listed off some features. You're like, we had to build all this in AriesDB ourselves. And then when there's something that has a community, and when it comes to Pinot, Uber is an amazing part of that, that makes significant investments, but so do other people, right? So you're not carrying the whole weight. You've got a community and other people are contributing to that thing. And that's kind of open source infrastructure, big open source project fundamentals there. You're not the only one carrying the bag, but that's important. And even if you're not a company where you're going to have PMC members on an Apache project, right? Which Uber is, but plenty of folks listening to this don't work for companies like that. You still need to look like, what is the health and vibrancy of the community around the thing? Because you need other people. You need there to be other people using it and solving problems and writing about it and making videos and giving talks and all that stuff that people do. You need that. So that's just a lesson learned. You're pivoting away from a thing because it was all yours to a thing that is yours plus other people's.
Right. And I think like you are right? Because like no matter what, like in these economic situations, the companies are still very conscious about like how many people they can hire for a given specific team, right? So it's very, very important to build the connections with the open source community and get their like inputs or opinions on the new feature design. So that's how you will make a faster progress. Like and it adds to your velocity of releasing this feature, or maybe even making it available for your customers, right? Like so I think I will say Uber has been one of the bigger consumer and the contributor of the open source, no matter what, like which technology there are out there, right?
Right.
Uber has one of the biggest deployments of Kafka in the entire world. Similarly for Raya, it processes like the more than trillion messages every day.
Okay. You've got the scale for that. I believe it.
Yeah. But yeah, I think like there are also the attributes that we evaluate for the open source, right? Like when we plan to adopt it internally. So how big is the open source community? What are the other companies who are using this technology? Or like what is the in-house expertise that we have? Because for any small things, for example, if you have any incident or outage within the company, and you need the expertise to debug the problem. Like we cannot rely on the open source community on that at that time, at that moment, right? Like so, whether we have the enough people who understand this technology end to end. And that's the reason actually, like over the period, we have like 3 Pinot committers now, and then like multiple contributors from the Uber who are contributing this complex features to the community. And we are also benefiting a lot from them, actually.
And that's how it's supposed to work. But yeah, when you're using open source, you can't, and in production, in customer-facing things, and it goes down, you can't wait for somebody to answer you in Slack.
Yeah.
Which might be 8 hours later. There's no SLA in there.
Exactly.
So that makes sense. It's about kind of concentrating internal expertise.
Yeah.
What's next after Aries?
Yeah, next I think like then we worked with Elasticsearch team. So at Uber there is a platform called Umetric. Umetric is it's mainly standardized the business metrics at Uber. So for example, each team that are working on this business metric or like relying on this business metric to make important decisions, they have a common definitions of the metrics. Earlier, like one of the problem we used to have is that every team defines the metrics in their own way, and when we are presenting these metrics to, let's say, leadership, like there is always some discrepancy because of the way we calculated the metrics, right? So there was no standardized platform for that, and
that kind of thing doesn't feel good, by the way.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not a good feeling.
Yeah. Right.
Why are your numbers different? I'm going to get back to you on that.
Right.
Yeah.
And then this platform was initially based on the Elasticsearch, and as you know, Elasticsearch is built on top of the Apache Lucene. And over the period, actually, Elasticsearch gradually added like a lot more features, and it has expanded its scope beyond search, analytics, logging, visualization, and etc. In fact, like it's also called as a Swiss knife in the industry because of the features it makes it available. And for us, like one of the main principle, like for the looking for alternatives, was the issues that we were having at that time. Like for example, it was very hard for us to scale it horizontally because Elasticsearch needs to migrate its shards to the newer nodes, right? Like and from the existing nodes, and this is while serving the traffic. Like so that means like you are running into some degradations, and the node additions become a very complex operation at the moment. Like it's not like very seamless.
Yeah, and you need to keep utilization below a certain level. If scaling out is expensive, then you need like budget in the cluster to manage the scale out, which you're going to have to do, which makes total operational cost higher because you're buying more servers than you need, basically.
Exactly.
Buying more servers than you need to serve the traffic that you have to keep space in your life for scale out.
Right. And then it's also like difficult to backfill. Like for example, one of the feature in the Pinot that is very useful is like offline tables, right? Where you can like read it from the batch data sources like Hive, right? And then like you can populate your Pinot tables, and you can do it like on demand. For example, only for the duration when you are missing this data, you can backfill that data. You're good as like the entire data being available to the users, right? Like so you're not losing anything. But in the Elasticsearch, it's very difficult to backfill in certain cases where it is needed, or like maybe when we know that this specific range is corrupted, but like we are not able to backfill. There are ways, of course, but they're like very hard to set it up. It is also difficult to customize. For example, when application becomes very complex, it's possible to run into the requirements that Elasticsearch cannot provide. It is extremely difficult or nearly impossible to make changes into the open source Elasticsearch because they changed their like licensing in 2021, and they no longer refers to Elasticsearch or Kibana as a open source, but they call it as a source available. Yeah, that makes it very hard. Like even if you know that these are the issues that you can fix, maybe or maybe you can contribute to, it's not easy to make it a part of the open source. So you always have this divergence, and then like you keep making the internal patches, and then it's very hard.
You keep the internal patches internal because Uber, you're not allowed to contribute those under the source available community license.
Right. It's
externally.
it's just like difficult, and maybe
Yeah.
I will say like it's not easy to do.
That is its own podcast episode.
Yes,
So, there are these other licenses. Footnote.
yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So that was a struggle for you because, of course, you're going to modify these things because that's how Uber does it.
And then actually we started working on migrating the Umetric platform Elasticsearch to Pinot. And then it was not easy, of course, like there was some feature gap that we had to address. But when you're migrating, right, you have to give the customers more than just the lateral movement to lateral migration to new storage, right? Because if it's just, you're changing the storage backend, it might not be that promising. But what are the other benefits that you're giving them? Like maybe improved reliability or the cost efficiency or maybe scalability, like so that the scale challenges that they were dealing with initially. So they do not have to now. So the cluster maintainability will be easier. The cluster expansion will be easier. So these are the features that we were able to achieve, like in order to make this migration more than just a migration, actually. So,
Right.
yeah.
But if I could ask, with you being an infrastructure team, kind of a service organization internally, do your internal customers have the option of saying no to you? I mean, if you're saying we're migrating this, do you get to say we're migrating this, or is that a mutual?
Generally, it is like the org level strategy, right? Like, so for example, when we like declare some migration, it has to be followed, backed up by some reasoning, like why we are doing it, right? And it's not only like, for example, in case of Elasticsearch, like there might not be a single system that can replace ES, right? Elasticsearch, because, for example, Pinot is good for analytics, but then it might not provide you the full text search capabilities, like ranking.
Right. I mean, there's text indexing, but that's not the same thing.
Exactly.
It's don't do that.
Right.
I mean, it'll never give you ranked answers. Which is kind of like basic search stuff.
Right. So, like ranking and relevance is something not possible with the Pinot, right? So for that, like they had to migrate to other in-house solution. So like they had created like this high-level guideline on which to in what cases.
Okay.
Like,
So
which
even the search workloads got migrated off of Elastic.
Yeah. Like so that like because when we decide to phase out the technology, like it has to have a path for all the available use cases, right?
Well, yeah, everybody. You still need to take care of your customers. Oh, okay. I just thought the analytics stuff got migrated off, but it was a total. Okay. All right. We're going to stop there for this episode. We're going to have the rest of this conversation next week. So tune in then. And there you have it. If you feel compelled to help us spread the word and grow the real-time analytics community, you can give us a rating on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever fine podcasts are sold. If you're watching us on YouTube, hey, subscribe and, of course, hit that notification bell. And you can always share your favorite episodes on LinkedIn or Twitter or wherever it is you do social media. Thanks, and I look forward to talking to you in the next episode.